What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the debut album by rapper Nas. Basically, this product is called Illmatic, and it came out in the spring of 1994. So the thing about this product, this has a lot of critical acclaim about it within these pitches as far as those pairs can happen. In certain senses, there's plenty of good hip-hop social media and pitches like that. Number of fairs critically acclaimed, like the aspect behind it that feels like this is one of the best rap albums of all time, if not the definitive best. Now, I think within the setting, the fact that there's a pretty universal type mindset within the tone as far as having a lateral type approach as far as saying that this is probably within the pinnacle of the top ones. I do remember when it came. I definitely think when you have like a composition of like some of the greatest rap albums of all time, it would probably be surprising if this weren't at least in like the top 5 or top 10 within some of those pitches, just within the format, compared to some of the other greatest albums of all time when you think of certain type ones. Now, obviously, it's not said like this album is going to get a classic score. Easy enough to say I recommend all 10 of the songs on this particular album, so it is a classic within those pitches. I do admit within those tones. Now, it's a little bit within the late shift towards getting towards this particular album. I don't know if there was like some sort of like song that I tried listening to in the past that there might have been like some outtakes from this particular album or something within those pitches that I don't remember that just gave me a bad taste as far as thinking about this particular album. But whatever, I don't know if it was back in like the Napster days or pitches like that just within those four. I don't know if it was within the Napster days of YouTube songs, pitches like that within those fairs as far as those particular fairs kind of happening, but left a particular foul taste in my mouth and I just didn't get around to fucking with this album until even very recently within those pitches. So it's just the format, but I don't know. I had seen the hype about this album. It's just within the pitch as far as me questioning. I think some of the disclaimers, like it being boom bap and kind of more like thought-provoking pitches like that, more conscious type hip-hop. It's not to have problems with those particular type fairs, but I just was underneath the impression that the production fair about this album is going to be a lot worse. I really don't see this album as being boom bap. I mean, I think this is pretty sonically pleasing for like the concept. I think the production as far as the disclaimer of this album is a lot different. This is just kind of like Eminem's The Slim Shady EP. Now, obviously, this came out 3 years before that, but it's within the pitch as far as saying if you like those hotbox type tunes that Old Dirty Bastard was real excellent with doing, with like his Return to the 36 Chambers album. This has plenty of hotbox type tunes, and this album, particularly throughout the whole way through, is just high as hell. It has the particular fashion of being stoned as hell, some of those type pitches within the format. I would look after, but like I was saying with some of the best albums of all time within the rankings, you know, you would say like Slim Shady LP, Marshall Mathers LP, Dr. Dre's The Chronic, NWA Straight Outta Compton, Biggie's Ready to Die, Tupac's All Eyes on Me or Me Against the World, some of those type pitches. Probably an album in there by a Tribe Called Quest, some of those type formats. Lauryn Hill's The Miseducation or something like that of Lauryn Hill, some of those type ones. Probably a Fuji's album in there, some of those type fairs within the pitch. Wu-Tang's 1993 album. In a nowadays sense, I'd probably throw in 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying, but probably within the primary, you know, like Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt and The Blueprint, some of those type pitches, just amidst the format, a typical kind of 5-star albums within the pitch. This is one that seems to be one of the crown jewels within the format. Now, I realize this album is really good, but in terms of the pitch, the enjoyment, the aesthetic about this album is particularly sleek and engaging within the format of a very compelling type album within the pitch behind it, which is more surprising than like the format of the particular fair as to how I just think the composition and the way that critics kind of raved about this particular album, I just think their demeanor as to how their reactions towards this album kind of happened was just more off-putting than like the format of how it actually wound up being. And I think that particular format, them just having more of like the elite kind of abstract and just kind of mentality of it being real hip-hop and some of those type tangents within the tone as far as saying that the lyrics on here and some of these type tangents, just the engagement, the bars, the delivery, these sorts of things, is the format of just being able to say as to how these aspects going to go within the tone of just like typical kind of cipher type modes within the pitch as far as saying it's just the grit and that particular grind factor, just like the sludge that kind of goes along with it. But this album is pretty affable within the sense it's more the composition of like the crowd's reaction to this album I just was not as affable towards. So it's no offense towards Nas within those pitches if I've said things in the past that maybe were not in as much of a commonplace light as far as like not having like the affability behind it. It's just the pitch as far as saying that just the demeanor as to how like the reception about it kind of was when you listen to albums like to compare, because you will get some folks that will try to be sneaky with it and try to cause like discrepancies and say, well, which album do you prefer, like Nas's Illmatic or 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying, just within the pitch as far as trying to shift up like an old school versus new school kind of vibe as far as trying to get that argument with the old heads, trying to get them riled up in pitches like that. I would think in a fairer sense, probably a more affable type promotion type fare would be comparing it to ones from that particular era, as far as saying which one's the better album, Illmatic or Ready to Die, or like which one's the better album, like Nas's Illmatic or Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. You know, just some of those type pitches within the format. I think 50 Cent probably be a little bit better for 50 Cent to go up against like DMX's, like It's Dark and Hell is Hot, some of those type pitches, or Busta Rhymes is the Big Bang. You know, just something within those particular type formats that this is more amidst like that fare. But this typical type stirrups is just the aspect behind like just more the aspects of, like the facetiousness of this album that just has more of just like not so much a charm factor, but it's just the off-put, and there's just certain ones that critics and just the crowds tend to defend a lot more within the pitch behind it. It's just off-putting. It's the same thing with Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. Look within the pitch. I probably will like one nowadays. I'd probably say I would wind up liking that album a lot more within the pitch behind it. It's just the fair as far as saying, you know, do I feel like this album is better than Get Rich or Die Trying? I just don't think it's within the aspect as to whether or not those should be compared. I just think it comes from a different era within some of those type pitches. So, because there's always going to be a crowd of people that you're going to annoy within some of those type formats. Like saying that this is the better album than the Marshall Mathers LP. I mean, there might be folks who might try to be facetious and say that they don't take any offense, but it's just the pitch as far as saying, if they wouldn't take offense to Nas, then why wouldn't they take offense? If you were to say that DMX has a better album than Eminem, it'd be the same pitch. So it's just kind of fair. But you look after it, definitely I could go on and on about ranting about this, you know, saying folks that would be better than Eminem. You know, you could say DMX, or you could say Nelly, or you could say like you know, Mac Dre or E40 or Too Short or some of those type of folks just within the pitch. But yeah, I just look after the classic album within those pitches, but I look after here, it's been able to say, so yeah, this had 5 singles, but the thing about this particular album is just the fact that it did not really have as much casual bite. The thing about it was this is more of just like a critically acclaimed type one within the pitch, as far as saying it got later on composition within the pitch. I said it looks within the pitch that as of February of 2019, this album has only sold 2 million copies. So I look within the pitch for being the greatest album of all time. I feel like obviously there's albums that have outsold this by quite a bit, but I look after here, the theme about this album is very high grade within the pitch as far as that particular fold kind of goes. I feel like when you think of things from like the particular kind of New York grit, this is a very NY type album within the pitch. It's like in the tone of like New York kind of city hops. This is something I think folks like 50 Cent and Busta Rhymes probably took affluence from within certain pitches. Maybe not as full-bound Busta Rhymes, but within the folks of a lot of 2000s kind of NY rappers pitch like that. This is one that's like a diamond kind of crest as far as like the format as to like the throwbacks to kind of getting those vibes. And this came out around the time when the Wu-Tang album dropped, pitches like that. So it's just within the fair as far as saying this is some composition about it. Very much feels like a Max Payne kind of video game, or Grand Theft Auto the first, you know, Grand Theft Auto 3, some of those type pitches within the fair. Movies like Empire, movies like Empire, movies like Casino, some of those type pitches just within the fair as far as getting towards like that particular crowd. Now it's just more ground level. That's what I like about Nas in this particular one, is he's more in like the party and bullshit type mode, just very druggy and just very sleaze factor, or just sludge factor within the pitch behind it. It's one of the big reasons why I wish that party and bullshit would have been on like Biggie's Ready to Die with some of those type pitches, but it just has the form. This is a fun type album, so just to say it's not for squares, not within the pitch as far as saying I like the format of just kind of that in between kind of sludge factor as far as those fairs going to happen. We'll definitely get to the composition, but I probably most definitely could continue to go on and on about this album just within the pitch as far as those fairs going to happen just within the tone, but just being able to say, just basically maintains that sludge type factor of like the Slim Shady EP pitches like that, with like red cups everywhere, probably a couple bottles of Hennessy in your whip as far as those fairs going to happen. If you don't have like an open bottle law, some of those type pitches behind it, it's kind of within the format of just hotboxing hella good, just pitches like that. Just basically the whole carry out through most of this album is probably being red eyes and gold eyes as hell within those pitches. So it's just the form as far as saying just some good kind of enjoyment within the drowsy type fashion. It's just very drowsy, like the affability behind it. Yeah, there were 5 singles off this album. So the first one was Halftime. This is real excellent type one. It's probably one of my more favorite songs off this album, I'd have to say. Halftime is like a bass groove kind of hot box classic to kind of get here, just droopy and red eyes, I'd say, within pitches like that. Just 40 ounces in the whip, some of those type fairs with your pals, pitches like that. It's like a good song for Hella Mingle and Yap as far as those fairs happen. So just in the pitch, this is a pretty social type album. So Nas definitely has his pals along with him this time. There's not a ton of guests on here, but it's just within pitch pitch as far as saying it has the format as far as getting towards some of these type moments just within the aspect as far as having like some fun factors that kind of go along with this. So it's just kind of the pitch that this is not isolated. It's not one of those Tibble type ones where this is solo for dolo or this is stone faced and solo for dolo, like fuck everybody pitches like that. It's just kind of the actual tone as far as saying this has some crowd please type moments within the aspect of this, having like affable kind of social aspect of this, like some weavings and pitches like that. It's kind of amongst the product of this Tibble kind of red cup kind of sludge pitches like that, just to miss like Tibble kind of red cup kind of sludge pitches like that, just to miss the format of this NY type fair places nearby to that, Philadelphia, some of these type places, Massachusetts, some of those type fairs within the aspect behind it, New Jersey, some of those type places like that. But I'd say yes, some nice fairs. It Ain't Hard to Tell is another nice one within these pitches. Second single here. It's like a jazzy kind of city strut and like a super droopy kind of burnt sense. I'd say here, just pretty stone within pitches like that. Just Tibble kind of Aaron's lays as far as those fairs gonna go. So this one the pitch. This one has a little bit more pep about it, but it's just kind of the conduct to like a makeshift type grab, but just within the conduct of this kind of having some recreational enjoyment as far as those fairs gonna happen. So it's just one the pitch. I mean, there is mild jazz tints about this particular album within the product of it as far as those fairs going to happen to connect within the tone behind it. It's just a good type of aspect for some of that lays type factor. It's just that typical kind of jazzy, just kind of taste of like the Big Apple pitches like that, just within the fair, but just kind of in a more droop type sense. So it's a good type fashion. I feel like halftime's more night bass, probably past 8 o'clock p.m., but this one has a little bit more of just like 4 o'clock, just typical kind of Statue of Liberty type fairs pitches like that, just appreciating like newspapers, coffee, some of those type pitches, but just within the stone type fashion, City Embrace fairs like that. Life's a Bitch is a quality one. This like a glazed kind of pink skies kind of City Embrace also kind of get here. This vintage NY, I'd say within pitches like that, this kind of reminds of like a Sleepier kind of Juicy by Biggie as far as those fairs were going to happen. Easy kind of ride out type music. So it's just within the tone as far as saying it's the product of like this probably has like a good relative commercial type fair about it, minus like the song title. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, but just the pitch as far as saying it has the aspect like some good NY kind of street grit, just in a more commercial type format. Keep in mind this came out before Biggie's Ready to Die, so it's within the pitch that this was kind of mapping things out. So this is why I feel like this album is not as much full bound boom bap, because I feel like these halftime really isn't. It's just more drowsy within the sense. I think there's just not a real kind of, I think within the concept of talking about boom bap, in my opinion, boom bap is more stuff like thinking out of like 1987 kind of Public Enemy and like turntable scratching type stuff that you would have nothing more than just a scratching of like a record and some of those type formats, but that really isn't this stuff. I mean, this is not so much G-funk, but it is kind of glazed type fashions. So just thinking very much within the similar type fashion of what NY hip-hop was kind of going through once production started to be more sonically kind of within that. So this is really not within the turntable. I mean, this is golden era of hip hop, but it just did a lot for like the format of just advancing this. Yeah, I would definitely say Life's a Bitch is just like a more Pink Skies kind of glazed, just drowsy or kind of Juicy by Notorious B.I.G. pitch like that. Great song to just have some mellow kind of cruise outs too. The World Is Yours is a real nice one. This definitely reminds me of 50 Cent years later. I had to say within pitch behind this real Apple type one. It's like a lofty kind of city scraper mingle to kind of get here. This feels like a Max Payne type game pitches like that, or just things like out of those fairs out of like the 90s. Movies like Goodfellas and Casino, some type pitch. Not as full bound mafioso, but definitely within the pitch of just like city kind of feeling. These typical kind of cocky city struts pitches like that. I'd say just kind of some commercial grit. I'd have to say here just a good concept like a banner type one. This definitely feels like NY ripped out of the 90s. It's definitely a banner type one that I think a lot of songs took affluence from pitches like that. And this is just good for pawn shops and local, just kind of neighborhood crawls pitches like that. So it's just within the fair. I think you can find this affluence in 50 Cent from like The Power of the Dollar and some of his early 2000s albums. Some of his early 2000s albums pitches like that, and just a bunch of products within those particular aspects behind it. This real affable type one that did loads of damage for NY hip hop pitches like that's a good nice one. Just another one of my more favorable ones off this album, I'd have to say. One Love is the fifth single. It's a nice one as well. It's like a floaty kind of hotel and lobby bounce to kind of get here. This reminds me of like Players Anthem by Junior Mafia. Good pitches like that just a year and a half before that came out. It's like a drowsy kind of luncheon rounds to kind of get within these aspects. So just miss the pitch of like some white collar type fair, just some pitch, and maybe coworker type products, and just like some kind of gatherings and pitches like that. It's kind of more inside the buildings, not so much city struts and snack runs, but just kind of not so much city struts and snack runs, but just within the pitch of actually being amidst like some mingle where you would have to have some chattiness within the fashion. So yeah, it's good social rounds, just like an early bird type one for like the formats that kind of Jay-Z would do with like American Gangster pitches like that. So some good type fairs. But yeah, that's half the album within those pitches. So easy enough to say. I recommend all 10 songs on here. It's this album. the album gets a 10 out of 10 within the pitch. So yeah, the Genesis is not really as much a full-bound song, but it is a pretty kick-ass intro within those pitches behind it. This is like a block party kind of local noise kickoff to kind of get within the aspects here. Definite party and bullshit kind of pitches like that. Some of those type tones just get high feed drinks on the table. Some of those type formats is just really getting turned out. Nas kind of has some minor kind of vocals on the song, not so much rap, but he is kind of on the song to help out with the skit as far as this first game. It just really feels like there's going to be some set off within the fashion. Pretty trendy for 1994. Definitely in the pitch, it is some set off within those aspects, just like some social connects as far as this first game. So excellent type appeal. The most popular song according to Spotify, which is a pretty banging type song, definitely probably another of my favorite song here, along with Halftime, The World Is Yours. Someone said wants to be NY State of Mind. Seems like I was questioning. I do feel like Empire State of Mind by Jay-Z. I'm surprised that particular song didn't have the name NY State of Mind, but I guess Nas beat him to it. So it's kind of the pitch of questioning whether or not 2009's Empire State of Mind took affluence from this particular song, but it definitely seems as if it probably would. Look within the pitch, NY State of Mind is like a leery kind of cipher, late shift grit to kind of get within these aspects here. Just some building songs, like some building, weaving pitches like that, just kind of smoke in the night wind sounds like there's just overall hot type songs. So this is a great song to freestyle to. Some of those type pitches, just seeing some turn up, seeing folks that could really tear this song apart. So in the aspects as far as this is going to happen. Yeah, but NY State of Mind is just with the particular drowsy type fashion, but just more amidst like the product like some night shifts. So just, I mean, it's awake, but it isn't. It's just kind of where you have some smoke in your system, but it's just kind of the product of being social, just amidst like the fair, just like nightlife and pitches like that. So it's not as much full bound. I want to say Nas is still technically under 21 around this time, so it's not like he was amidst like dance clubs, strip clubs, this full bound. It's not like he couldn't have been. It was just within the pitch as far as saying he was a minor at this particular stage. So it's just kind of the concept, but it does have some excellent type appeals being able to get this particular product within the viciousness. So this one, NY State of Mind and Halftime really goes like an excellent type combo within it. One Time for Your Mind's a nice one within those settings, as well as like an in-between kind of city traffic. I'd have to say here within these pitches, just Red Eyes and kind of Laundromat and Aaron type sludge within pitches like that. Good song to drift to. This particular song just has the format of just kind of in between fashions of songs like The World Is Yours with a little bit of Halftime in there and a little bit of NY State of Mind, some type pitches within it, but it's just kind of a lazy type one, just the fashion, just getting some errands done, but just kind of jivey, having some smokes in your system, having the enjoyment factor, but just kind of being productive within the format, not getting behind in like daily task pitches like that. I'd have to say it's good type fares for that. Another good social spark of one on here would be Represent. It's like a good Wu-Tang like vibes to kind of get here, just pitches like that, just shell out some of those type fares to my shell, just spend some money, have the product, having some fun, mingle, kind of a big city, kind of loud noise pitches like that with your pals. Good song to meme and holla pitches like that. Some of those type fares is a good stunt type song within the pitch. So it just has the product of it. I mean, it's kind of mid-tempo within the pitch as to how the song kind of goes. Maybe not as noisy, full-bound as NY State of Mind, but definitely has the pitch like some good product, having like some wild-out type moments with your pals as far as those pitches can happen. Just amidst like hotboxing pitches like that, just telling stories pitches like that, chunking up the deuce, having some good times. Is within good type fare. Smoke sessions like crazy, I'd have to say. And then Memory Lane sitting in the park is a nice one as well. It's like a glazed kind of wayside, kind of makeshift, I'd have to say here. Goes pretty well with Life's a Bitch, just kind of the same type form, but just more in a catching up type fare, I'd have to say. Simple, kind of simping, some of those type aspects, I'd say. Good smoke fest type song within a relative type sense if you have the ability to. Just good for some outings, pitches like that, standard commerce. So it's just one of the pitches for saying good type fare within these products. So overall, real excellent type packaging as far as this album kind of happens. So yeah, 10 out of 10 score. The social score I'll give pretty much, I would say either a 9.75 or a 10. I think the impact just speaks volume. Enough people fuck with this album, despite the fact that it didn't really have the charting singles, and it was not that much like a brigade of an album back in 1994 in the mid-90s. I mean, it had the appeal, but it just was not in terms of like radio staples, but that's always how Nas has kind of been. But this does have some pretty excellent social connect on here, to be able to say. It's just the product saying like this drowsy type feeling is real Apple. It's basically very similar to Eminem's Slim Shady EP pitches like that, considering I listened to the Slim Shady EP sooner than this one. Has the product like some good drowsy type fare, hitting up laundromats, arcades, some of those type fashions, pitches like that, some of those type fares, shopping malls, some of those particular type products. Places like Burger King, just sleepy as hell, just within a big city type fashion. Subway, some of these type of moments of just transit type fares and just picking up standard things just within the aspect. Just Aaron runs pawn shops, some of those type fares. Just nails it within the affluence of just appreciating like big city life in the format of just like some outings with social type aspects with pals and hotbox type moments. So just the pitch as far as doing that, plenty of these type moments. The only thing about it is, doesn't have a dance club song, some of those type pitch. It's not really like a song, not really like a full bound song, get the bells shaking their ass pitches like that. But this is more of like that street grit. I just feel like within the aspect, this is a grimy type album that definitely is within the format of like Wu-Tang, Mobb Deep, some of those type folks, and it nails it. Because I feel like this is a little bit more commercial. This Nas does a pretty good job of at least trying to make this commercial, so it's not just underground. This is actually something that rose above ground within those pitches, so it nails the aspect of being able to do it. minus just having like a casual single, but it definitely has the aspect as far as making New York kind of commercial and just having the grit as far as just having that particular tone of having that sludge like some Red Cup kind of slime and pitch like that, and just makeshift kind of alleys within a drowsy type sense that works. It's just very connecting, very affable. The aesthetic is very infectious, pitches like that, so it's good type tone. So I look after it. In terms of the future, like Nas has dropped some recent. In terms of the future, Nas has dropped some recent albums. He's been dropping ones with like Hit Boy pitches like that. I don't know his full blown what he's been up to within some of these type pitches full blown, but I know he dropped an album like in 2023 or 2024. So some pitches like that. I'm gonna get to some more of these. I do want to get to Stillmatic from 2001 and some other type ones like Godson from 2002. I'm definitely gonna get the 2000s Nas. I am gonna get to some further Nas from the 90s as well, pitches like that. But this is an easy full blown kind of classic. Shouldn't have slept on it the way I did, but I definitely there were reasons for it. But it's within the pitch as far as saying it's more that there's more the public's demeanor is the reason behind that, but I do definitely see the volume of this particular product and this is pretty hitting project in spades.